Welcome to Craft and Crashouts with your co-hosts Mick and Ari. We are both writers trying to become traditionally published, and on this podcast, we meet every week to discuss craft, progress, and what we are currently crashing out about.
I'm so glad you're feeling better.
Thanks. I have tea with me today and a candle.
I have a latte, and this is my favorite mug. It's like a fall mug. I got it on Etsy. There's like a leaf and a mushroom, an acorn. Wait, let me spin it. Because there's a pumpkin, and the pumpkin's my favorite one.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
And then if you drink to the bottom, there's a little ghost at the bottom of the cup.
I love that.
So cute.
I'm like actually obsessed with that. See, I have a winter mug, but it's because this is like my favorite, like the size of this mug is my absolute favorite mug, but I do have this giant candle I just cracked into that is pumpkin scented.
Delicious. Honestly, feel of mugs, very important.
It's important.
Very important.
As someone who is a ceramicist as well, I constantly, I don't know, I feel like I break the norm a lot of like what handles should look or feel like, because I'm like, guys, if I gotta be able to like
wrap my
hold
hands
a mug
around it. Yeah.
If I'm like one fingering, like holding on for dear life for a handle as I walk around my house, it's a no for me. I'm not going to use that mug very often.
I completely agree with you. I drink my coffee very slowly. And so I bought the like ember mugs, you know, the ones that like keep your drink warm. So like I'm obsessed with it. It's great. But like the hand feel is so wrong.
Oh no.
Like otherwise it's like a 10 out of 10 mug. It just like keeps your drink warm the entire day, which is incredible. But like, yeah, it ain't no like short and squat mug.
That looks cozy. It does need to be short and squat or like huge.
Welcome to episode 1 of Craft and Crashouts. We love the name.
I can't get over that. I know. I'm like, I can't get over it. I love the name. It just fits us perfectly. We're two people who are like obsessed with talking about writing craft and getting better at our craft and analyzing work. But as we both know, behind the scenes and now in front of the camera, we have quite a lot of crash outs.
We're just two sensitive girlies doing the best that we can. And honestly, like, everybody needs a good crash out. But I think also the key to this podcast is like everybody needs a good friend when they're crashing out.
So lovely.
Yeah. So this is why we bring you Craft and Crashouts.
Yes. We're just two little Pisces who the other day I was having a crash out and Ari sent me the nicest voice note. I was like, this is exactly what I need. So yeah, we're just breaking that to you in podcast form.
Love it. Okay, brief introductions. I think you might know us both from YouTube. I'm Ari. I think I'm at Ari's pages or at RiBPK. And I originally started YouTube because I, again, like love writing, love the journey of writing, working on a book called Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call, which is like an eco-fantasy novel. And I've been working on it for like a year and change, I want to say. And yeah, Mick, do you want to introduce yourself and then we can tell the folks why we switched to podcast format?
Yeah, so I am Mick. Real name is Mikayla, but we're all friends here, so you can call me Mick. Okay. I am at Mick Writes on YouTube, and I am working on my project that I've just dubbed Project Bones that I've also been working on for about a year and a half now. So that's what we've been crashing out about.
Truly crashing out about. And at least for me, I think like I took a bit of a YouTube hiatus because I really enjoy making videos, but it takes so much time. And I think for me, it was very much like I got into the AuthorTube area because I really wanted to find community, which like luckily, like I really did, like made so many wonderful friends from the internet, which was like such a blessing. but I didn't realize like how much time and energy it would take to actually like create content, especially as I had been going from basically like after my 9 to 5, like I would spend like 3 hours a night writing. And then you have to kind of like take that time and almost like divvy it in half if you want to be like in the content game. And I found myself like really starting to focus on the content stuff instead of like, wait, but I want to be a writer. Like I need to like focus on spending my time and energy and attention on the writing instead of like trying to churn out videos and trying to build a platform, which is extremely important, especially in publishing these days. But that was kind of a big switch for me, is like, okay, what is my priority? My priority is writing and trying to make this book as good as I possibly can.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why I asked you to potentially do this with me, because I know we just share similar feelings. I think we started too around a similar time on YouTube. But I agree. I loved making videos, but I loved it a little too much to where it became the main focus was making sure I got a video every week out, and my writing kind of fell to the side. And at the end of the day, you and I, like we said, we both want to write, be writers, be the best writers we can be. And I didn't want to necessarily be a content creator. I wanted to be a writer first and let the content come naturally from that, which I felt it can be done the best in podcast form. It's just you and I chatting as if we would be on a video call anyways, talking about our writing.
Exactly.
And then we can stay in conversation with writing. Like I want to continue talking about writing with the community, but I didn't want it to be the forefront. And if you follow me on socials, you know I have a crash out about being on the internet like every 2 weeks. So
which is like valid, very valid of you.
You know,
in this day and age,
in this day and age, it is scary to be on the internet. I don't like it, but a podcast just feels, I don't know, it just feels like the most approachable way to stay in conversation, talk with a friend about writing, hold each other accountable, but not have to think about so much as like a brand and like the content shiny, like making my video look good, forgetting to film me pouring my coffee. Like, I just can't do that.
I can't either. The lighting
Respect
never
everyone
works.
who can. The lighting
Same.
never works.
It never works.
I live in an old house. Okay. I live in a century-old home. There's
Love
no
that.
overhead lighting. Like, if the natural light isn't there, it's just, it doesn't work.
No, I'm with you. I'm sitting next to like the only window, and the kitchen is like all the way back there. And I'm just like,
me too.
Lighting. But I think also one of the beauties is, at least for me, I don't know if you're going to, but I'm going to kind of use this podcast also as like a check-in to like, you know, see that I'm kind of hitting the milestones that I want to hit. And also like, I think the really beautiful thing about a podcast is like, you know, we get to discuss. Like, I feel like one thing about YouTube is like, I am talking to myself, you know what I mean? And I love talking to other people and like hearing other people's perspective. And I think that a lot of the times it's often slower to get to a breakthrough if you're just like working your way through it yourself. And I feel like really bouncing ideas off of friends or just like talking about what you're struggling with a friend, it can make all the difference.
And writing is one of those like solitary pursuits, we always say, but I really think that writing it's a group effort, like you said. I mean, especially if you want to go the traditional publishing route and you're going to have a team like agents, editors, so many people looking at your work, helping you make it the best. And in this pre-publishing time, I feel like that is where your friends come in, like your writing friends. At least for me, I'm a verbal processor. So yeah, I could film a 40-minute YouTube video of me yapping, but like you said, it's yapping to the air. It's less of the sounding board and the give and take and like getting new perspectives and working through problems. It's really just me. It felt more lonely to make YouTube videos sometimes, even though I made great online friends. So I love that we can actually chat about our work and work through our problems together.
Me too. I'm so excited. Also, plug for later in this podcast episode, but there will be an opportunity for all of you guys to also air your problems. And we will be your cheerleaders.
We can crash out together and then we'll hype you up.
Exactly. We'll crash out together and then gas you up.
Yeah, That is
We
the
love
plan.
it.
That's usually our cadence here.
Shall we jump in to our weeks this week?
Yes.
Okay.
What are you reading this week?
Okay. I have it with me.
Oh,
Let me pull it out.
Way more prepared.
No, it's literally on the table right next to me. Okay, I'm reading Blood Over Brighthaven. I don't know if you've ever read it, but
I own it, but I haven't read it yet.
I'm almost done. You can see where my bookmark is. It's probably like 70% of the way through. I love it. Just the sheer efficiency of this book. Like, I'm going to go back through. I think I also might use this book as a comp, which I love, but I'm going to go back through and just kind of like highlight, just from a structural standpoint, her writing is so efficient, but there's also such momentum to every single scene that you're like excited to see what comes next. And it's just like a masterpiece from just like a craft perspective. So I want to go back through and annotate, but I'm really enjoying this Blood Over Brighthaven.
I love that she is doing standalone fantasies. I can't tell you how many times I start a series and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of 8 series right now. And it kind of stresses me out a bit, especially when things aren't out all the way yet. And I can't remember the first one. So I think it's great that she does standalones. And I think that is such a skill to distill an entire fantasy world. All these characters, you gotta, do the lore building and buy the reader into your story and get them to the finish line to make that payoff worth it, all in one book instead of like 3, which is traditionally really, there's been a lot of duologies lately, but I feel like fantasy lives in those like trilogy realms. And that's actually good to know because I'm writing a standalone right now. And so maybe I'll read that too as well and go through it looking at like pacing and structure because you have to be so efficient when you're writing a standalone.
So efficient. And I personally think she does a really excellent job because like actually like I can see where the story arc is going, but just like when I zoom out and I look at the story arc of like the story she's trying to tell, like I think in my like early writer brain I'd be like, oh, this story arc like could be a trilogy. But she's like managing to fit it all into like one book and in like a very artful and well done way. So I would really recommend.
Okay. That will move up on my list. I have a very long physical TBR right now that's so daunting.
Same.
So I will move that up. I'm sad that I didn't bring I'm sad I didn't bring my book up here. I should have done that. It's in my living room. I have the physical copy and it's gorgeous. I'm reading Immortal Consequences by Ivy Marie right now. So that's a YA fantasy. And I think it is a series because I think it says like #1 on Goodreads. But
I think she's writing this sequel right now from her socials is my understanding.
Yeah, I also am obsessed with her Instagram. Shout out Ivy Marie. I've like been following her publishing this. So I was so excited to get my hands on it. It's like the perfect fall read. And I'm loving it. Sometimes, especially as an adult reading YA fiction, sometimes I can get into a book and be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not the intended audience. Like the voice isn't hitting probably in the way it should because I'm now 30. But Immortal Consequences isn't feeling like that. It's so amazing. Great. And I feel like it has, I don't know, it has a lot of depth and it has also the same thing I love about YA, which it's more like action packed. So it's like every chapter is just you're moving and racing towards the end. But what I'm really loving from like a craft perspective from this book is her characters. She has a huge ensemble cast. We switch through 6 POVs, which is
that's a lot.
Really hard. Yeah. It's all third person, so it makes it, I think, easier. But I'm impressed because I feel like sometimes publishers don't love to take that gamble on like a debut. And so that's really awesome that she was able to do 6 POVs. And it's really fun to cycle through the cast. I feel like all of them feel so different in voice and personality. And like most YA, I think she's really leans hard into dialogue and it's so well written. That's like such a struggle point for me. So I'm loving it.
What do you have? Is it like banter? Is it just like subtext?
Yeah.
What about the dialogue?
I feel like, the banter top notch. And I feel like my banter is so awkward.
It's
when I write
so hard to write good banter.
It
really
is. Like natural banter. And I think it's helping too because I'm listening to the audiobook sometimes when I'm like cleaning, and they have 6 different voice actors, and that's really fun to hear. Yeah, really cool.
I
Really
love
Yes, I
audiobooks with
love when they do
multiple
that.
actors. I
Me
love that.
too.
Yes.
But I think it's helped me get into it too because it's so immersive, and hearing the dialogue come to life it's just done so well. It feels so naturally coming out of their mouth, whereas like that's usually the test, at least for me. Like I'll read my dialogue back to myself as if I'm acting it out, and it usually sounds not good. So yeah, I think the banter is there, but they also all sound differently. Like they all react differently. And, their cadence of how they speak is different. And, they might lean into certain words versus others. So I think she did a really good job of distinguishing them not only on the page, but in their voice as well, which is hard to do for 6.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, that's really impressive and like challenging. So it's amazing that it's like all standing out to you too. Yeah. Good reads this week. Good reads.
I know. Good reads. What have you been working on this week?
Okay. So I'm working on draft 2 of Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call. And in my attempt at making a semi-clean draft, the process that I've been processing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
It's so valid. I'm just like, it's just
I just
like,
felt that
what are we doing? Yeah.
I just felt that so deep within me.
You get it, Nick. You get it.
I get it.
So like basically to try to give some context to explain my process is like, I'm a zero drafter. And by zero drafter, I mean like I will write 50,000 words of hot garbage that will make absolutely no sense to anyone but me. And then I'll go through and I'll reread it and I'm like, this sucks. But like I can see the nuggets. Okay. So I wrote a draft 1, which is like maybe a tier up from hot garbage.
We have tiers. I love this.
Yeah, we do. We have tiers
visual.
of hot trash. And basically what I took from that draft is like I went ahead, I made a reverse outline, I did a huge developmental edit, and I like re-outlined the entire book. And so now I'm basically taking this outline and I'm drafting it. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna get like such clean scenes and they're gonna immaculate. What a joke. But basically what I've been doing is like I will write a scene, like a hot garbage scene, and then I will go back and I will edit it, which I know is not supposed, like people recommend against that, but I actually think at the stage that I'm at, I think that that's just like how I draft things. Like even for like, like scientific papers or like memos or whatever I have to do for work or whatever. Like I always have to write like a really messy draft of something before I can get a nicer version of it. And so like I'm just kind of leaning into it and I'm realizing like maybe that's just how I do it. So I was traveling this past week and I cannot draft cleanly when I'm traveling because I'm just like on a train. So I actually finished all of Act 1. And so I would say like half of Act 1 is like actually kind of polished and it's not done yet. I'm still not very happy with it, but I basically wrote half of that last half of Act 1. So that's what I worked on this week. I think we wrote like 10,000 words this week, which I'm like super happy with. But it's also like they're really rough draft, like messy. Like I need to go back in this week and really tidy them up because they do not make a ton of sense and don't have a ton of flow. So that's what I worked on this week. And what I'm planning on working on is basically just like cleaning them up and trying to make them legible.
I love that. I didn't mean to laugh at semi-clean draft, but I think
Nick,
it's such a struggle.
We have to laugh. If we don't laugh, we cry.
We will cry, hence the crash out. And I'm sure that will happen at some point. I'm sure we will. Two Pisces girls talking about our writing. I'm sure we'll cry at some point. But
if not this episode, the next.
The next. You can always expect it to just be on the horizon. But this is why I think our processes are very different, like all writers, but they also they're similar in some ways where you and I also both like kind of edit as we go, which it's like bad writing advice. But I get that struggle too. Once you did the messy stuff, you want it to come out just a little cleaner. And
Yeah.
so it does feel like you have to, you kind of like take 4 steps forward, like 6 steps back almost, and then keep doing it until you're finally done.
1,000%. And I think that's really well said. And I also will say, like, I'm only editing as I go because, like, I've done like 2 or 3 iterations of this book now in like different forms. And I'm like, okay, like I know the story, I know the arc of the story. And so it's like, I feel kind of okay with like going back and editing. Like, I think momentum is really, really important when you like don't know the story yet. But now that I do, it's like, I think it's okay to kind of like start and stop a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
How about you?
Oh,
What are you working on?
speaking of, I actually had to open up my
Just like the panicked giggle.
not to freak out. I actually had to just pull up my Scrivener to see where I am. So I'm also on draft 2, but it's like a very different, it's still kind of a draft 1 because I wrote draft 1 and then I changed so much of the story going into draft 2. Which it's funny. I keep talking. I talked on my YouTube about this. I've mentioned in my other podcast about this that I've changed so much, but like I really haven't. It's a lot of, I don't even know how to make this make sense, but it's really, it's like the overarching plot, I feel like changes a lot, but a lot of scenes stay the same. So I'm going to use an example because you have read some of my work.
And it's so good.
Thank you, Ari.
Please.
And Ari is an amazing writer as well. We can both gas each other up about this, but
we have to.
We have to.
We must.
Again, we cry. We must. We must, or we
must,
cry.
or we cry.
But there was a scene, and I think I even read out loud a couple sentences of this scene on my YouTube like last year. And it was a scene that I gave you and Becca to read. I think Cody as well. And it's a scene where my main character, Helen, because she can see ghosts. For anyone who doesn't know, that's like her affliction in life. She's plagued by these ghosts. This poor girl is like literally haunted. Poor Helen. And there's a scene where she's like in her apartment and she creates like her own deprivation chamber to not let the ghosts come to her. That was like my first chapter for the longest time. And then when I changed things around in my story, that scene still happens. It's just no longer chapter 1. It happens in like a different way in chapter, I was actually just looking at this, in chapter 6. So it's like, things are changing, but I'm reusing a lot of my old writing, or like I'll go back and I'll copy and paste paragraphs because I liked how I said something. And some scenes have stayed pretty much the same. It's almost like the order of them has changed while I add like or detract things.
Yeah, like the nuggets and like the core idea stays, but like maybe the way in which you use them like alters slightly.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think when I changed this story too, I cut a lot of the fat. I cut a lot of like the unnecessary, really cool story elements that I had that just weren't serving the plot. It was just a really cool idea. And so now this draft 2, I feel like it's more through line. It's cleaner. It's going to be a standalone. Everything in the story has a meaning. It makes sense. It moves forward. But I'm writing it in 4 parts. I'm in part 3 right now, but I still go back to part 1 and 2, kind of doing what you're doing where like I'm editing as I go. There's some chapters I left for myself in part 1 and 2 that are very much like bare bones, like more like a long outline of like me, you know, string of consciousness. Like I know what needs to go here, but I couldn't figure out how to say it yet. And again, this might not be best writing practice. I could just push myself to the end, but what's happening is like I get further along in the draft and then I know how that scene earlier on should be written because I can foreshadow something and it kind of like all the pieces start to click. So I'm also doing like a 4 steps forward, 6 steps back. So some days I'm working on part 3. Some days I'm like back in chapter 3 again.
Right.
But it's been working for me as I'm kind of like just moving around all the puzzle pieces. So this week I was in part 3 for 1 chapter, and then I was in part 1 for 2 chapters. Okay. So that is kind of what I worked on. I did the 4 steps forward. 6 steps back. Yeah.
But it's so important because like, you know, a story is kind of a living thing, especially like in this drafting stage. And like the end has to inform the beginning, just as like the beginning stages inform how it's going to end, right? So I feel like there are always these rules to writing where it's like, don't edit as you go. And then there's always going to be exceptions to that, because there's so many different processes according to like how your brain works, but also just, you know, what stage of the process are you, where it's like actually kind of like editing as you go. If you have the story pretty much fleshed out, is kind of like how you need to revise and complete it.
And editing for me is personally my favorite part. So I probably do speed into it because I like using the analytical side of my brain with the creative part, like in tandem, which I feel like is what editing kind of does. But I also think it's going to make actual editing me so much happier, because if I know something needs to change in like an early chapter because I might have veered a little differently from my outline, because that also is happening. I'm like thinking of a different branch and I think it's making the story stronger to go in this slight other direction. I have to change something in the beginning. And for me, I just know I will be way happier if I fix that now before me going into my second draft and being like, wait a second, why does it say this in chapter 1 when I know how it's going to end? And I think that would stress me out more, because I'd have a way bigger editing feat. Like I would much rather, I'd much rather, like you said, have a semi-clean draft to work with when I go into like my full like scientific madness, like editing mode, which I hope I'm going to hit, dear God, by the end of this year. Like, please.
But fingers crossed. It's so funny because I feel like this is also, again, where our processes diverge, because you're like, yes, I want to, like, I will go back to the beginning to fix something so I have an easier time. But I'm very much just like, this is a future me problem. Like, if it's... like if it's something like big enough that I'm like, oh my God, I have to go change like multiple chapters, I'm like, we're doing this the next round. Not a chance.
Not today. Well, I think I do have to pick and choose, because like I did say the other day to you that I do have a document in my Scrivener that says open this later. And
that is so ominous.
It's because it's terrifying in there, Ari, because it looks like the ramblings of like someone who's been locked away for years and is like scribbling madly. Like that's that
Love
paper.
It.
But like I'll voice note myself. Like I'm like thinking about my draft and I put it in the Scrivener document. So like it looks scary in there. But I'll pick and choose which things I need to go back and like tweak. But I guess if there is like a really big change, like you said, that requires like tons of chapters to be fixed or worked on, that goes in the open this later. And I'm sure when future me opens it, she'll cry on this podcast with you about how much work I have to do.
And I will pat you on the back and tell you it's all going to be okay.
Thank you. We need that.
Open this later. Oh my God. The terror I would have, just like...
It is fear-inducing. I guess I didn't realize how scary it was, but like it's in all caps.
Where are you supposed to put it? Oh my God.
Yeah, with multiple exclamation points. All caps, 2 exclamation points, open this later. Because I don't, because I can go down the rabbit hole. So I have to stop myself sometimes. Right.
But it's also like I forget everything. And so like, yes, like I have to write it down someplace. Otherwise it's going to be gone. And so like having a consolidated area where you can put all that stuff, it's a great idea. Yes. Like I'm laughing, but it's also like absolutely what you should be doing.
So with what you've been working on and reading, have you learned anything craft-wise?
Craft-wise, yes. I think one big thing that I've been thinking a lot about is kind of like arc efficiency. And so what I mean by that is like when we think about a story, we think about like one overarching arc. But like every act, for example, has its own internal arc. So like if you think about it in like a 3 or a 4 act structure, you have kind of like this big arc, and then you have like the 4 little arcs that make up the big arc. And I'm on the level where I'm thinking about like scene arc. So if you take like the one act where you have like the big arc of the story, the internal arcs of each act. And then I'm thinking about like each scene act. And I'm really trying to do my best to get like all of the scene components to make like its own mini internal arc that then like fit within the act's arc. And so like I'm really trying to make a very mindful effort like craft wise of thinking about like the act 1 arc and how like each individual scene like then ties into that arc, but it has its own arc of itself. And I feel like that has been really hard, but actually what I've been doing, and I've been, I think, really pleasantly surprised with how this been working, is I basically just like go in and I write like mechanistically what every little piece of the scene needs to accomplish. So if I'm like, okay, main character needs to do this character needs to do this, we need to touch on this subplot, we need to touch on this like main story engine. And obviously like the entirety of the scene should primarily be focused around like the main story engine, so that like big overarching story arc, and then like the little mini arc of the act. And like I feel like that has been kind of like a light bulb moment for me when like thinking about all of these arcs and how they're like kind of fractals within each other. That has kind of been a game changer for this current draft, craft wise.
That's really interesting. And I'm such a visual person. So I'm like, I love the talking with your hands, because I'm like, I see what you say. It's the big arc, then you have little arcs, and you have little arcs everywhere. I think that's really good though. Do you like write that out like by hand, or are you like putting it in like the Word document and then you go and write? Like, how are you getting that down on paper?
I have it in an Excel spreadsheet, actually. So like I have it kind of broken down as like, okay, this is the scene, this is the act, this is the main plot beat, this is the main, like this is the subplot beat, this is the character arc beat. And then like I'll have like this is what this scene needs to accomplish for like each of those columns. And just thinking about like, okay, like how do we build to that first plot point? Because I think like when I think about act arcs, I think about like how are we culminating towards like at the end of act 1, the first plot point, or like at the end of act 2A, midpoint, or at the end of act 2B, how are we culminating with a third plot point, right? So it's like constantly thinking about how we're like arcing towards those major plot beats. And so just like an Excel spreadsheet, I feel like that was the easiest way to visualize it for me.
Yeah. You are an Excel spreadsheet girly.
I love it. I don't know. It's like the way that my brain works. It's like there's so many different paths that I'm just like, I need it in column and row format. But I totally understand wanting to draw it out.
Yeah, I think I do both kind of, which is interesting. Like I'll take a program like Milanote that you can like move things around, or I physically go full on murder wall and like do it physically. And then sometimes I'll need it in the spreadsheet format, because like I also want it to be transportable and the columns and lists make sense. Plus you're a woman in STEM, so of course you're in Excel.
I love a spreadsheet. Like give me the data. That. Give me the data. And so my spreadsheet for my plot is the data for my story. So this is how my brain is.
Yeah. It's the data points that you're looking at. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Do you feel like you were struggling with this and then now it's something like, how did this come into consciousness for you? Like, how did you realize like, oh, I need to start thinking about this?
The spreadsheet or the arcs?
The arcs.
Okay. Because I think I have the hardest time. I think we've actually talked about this, how much we hate Act 2.
Every writer needs a t-shirt that's like, don't ask me about the fun and games section.
Yeah. The big swampy middle.
Yeah, don't ask me about it.
No, we hate it. But in the last draft of Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call, like I just had the hardest time with Act 2. And I think what I realized was like upon my reread, what I realized is like Act 2 wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And I was actually really struggling with Act 1 and Act 4 because I do 4-act structure. Yeah, 4-act structure. And I think what I realized is because I had such a hard time with it, I was actually giving it more attention to try to get it to build to the midpoint. And then build to the third plot point. And I realized that I wasn't doing that for Act 1 and Act 4. And I was like, interesting. Okay, like maybe this is actually a strategy that like works. Like just thinking about the little pathway, like each baby step that you have to take to get to this like major plot beat. So that was kind of my way to it. And I also feel like everything we say, I feel like we almost have to caveat. It's like, this is what's working for me right now, but I can guarantee you in like 2 months, it might be something totally different.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like that was another, I guess, even going kind of way back to why we did a podcast versus maybe focusing on YouTube more. I think that was another issue sometimes with me for YouTube, because I'd I'd have a video and I'd be like, this is how I outline. And then 6 months go by and I'm like, well, now how I outline has changed. So, but so many people keep watching this video and being like, this is amazing. Like, oh my gosh, like, how do you do this now? And asking me all these questions. And I'm like, oh, babes, I'm so sorry. I've moved on from that outline.
I've moved on.
I've moved on. I actually have no idea. So yeah, I think like you said,
I'm so with you on that. Yes.
Like the manuscript is a living, breathing thing. And the end product is so far away from the finish line. Like the process is really the art part. It's the intricate part. And we are both like trying our best to learn all the time as we write and improve. And I'm sure like every book is just a completely different process. And I think that makes sense. So I think that's why I wanted to know like how you got to that point, because I always find it interesting. Like, what are we struggling with? And then how did we realize it was a struggle? And like, now how are we trying to fix it? Because what is writing but just a ton of mini crash outs where we then have to steer into a new direction.
1000%. But I'm going to pose the question back to you. So what have we learned this week about craft or from reading and writing that you've been kind of like focusing on a bit more this week?
Yeah, so you also know this from our personal chats, but I've been really harping for some reason as I read back chapters on tone. And I think it's part because I'm really hard on myself, and this will be a theme for me throughout this podcast, throughout my life. I'm very hard on myself and a little bit of a perfectionist. And so when I do read back,
I think we can relate. I think, yeah.
I think
I
we're
hear
both
you.
a little in that boat, but I'm highly critical when I'm like, especially if I'm just reading the last scene I wrote so I can get into the scene, which I usually have to do. And I get worried sometimes that my tone and how I'm writing and like really everything, but mostly tone, feels young adult. And I'm wondering too if it's because, one, I am reading a lot of young adult lately. I really I feel like the last 5 books I've been reading has been speculative fiction, but it's all been young adult. So I'm like, it could be seeping into what I'm writing, because that happens if I'm reading while writing. It could subconsciously my tone starts to shift and I have to flag those chapters. That's a future Mikayla problem. She can figure that out later. But I have been really worried that my book is feeling young adult, and that's not my goal. And that's not to say young adult is bad. I love young adult. I still read young adult. I've written young adult. But this book in particular, I wanted it to feel adult. I want it to be in the adult book section, and the characters are in their mid to late 20s, so they are adults. And I've been really struggling with that. I think it has been helpful though, because now that I've realized that this has been in the forefront of my mind and I'm reading a young adult book, I started to tab. I have I have my tabs next to me, but not the book, but I have all these pretty fun tabs. And I actually started to tab with pink so I can see it stand out. When I notice why this book is being categorized as YA, or when a character is acting like a young adult instead of an adult. And I also talked to Lynn on YouTube about this, because she's writing an adult fantasy that's coming out next year, and she's writing another one. And I asked her if she ever struggles with this, because I didn't know, is this a me being too critical problem? Is this me because I'm writing fantasy? And I feel like a lot of times when women write fantasy, publishers put it as YA. When men write fantasy, they put it as adult. And even if they have 18 plus characters, in Immortal Consequences, it's a range, but there are 18 plus characters in here. But she gave me really good advice. And that's why I started looking for it when I'm reading, it's the reactions. It's the, let me actually look. Hey, Lynn, shouting you out. How did you put this? It was so well said. I wrote it down. I was like, this is exactly it. But she was saying, like, watch out for how your characters are reacting to things. Like, are they being a bit melodramatic? Because that is kind of, that's how teenagers are. That's how I was as a teen. That's how a lot of like female protagonists act. It can be their reactions. Are they being a little melodramatic? Which I do lean into melodrama sometimes. I think sometimes my characters do have big reactions. And I think the key to working on an adult tone versus a YA tone is pulling those reactions introspectively instead of letting them like burst out of you. Like having your character process the emotions before they respond, or have them have an internal reaction, but play nice to someone's face. Because I feel like as a teenager, you're a little more brash. You're a little more like, impulsive. I'm just going to tell you exactly how I'm feeling. Or I'm going to be like so shy and so reserved. Like it's kind of like two ends of the spectrum. Whereas like as you get older, I think you learn how to kind of make your way in the world and how to talk to certain people and how to conceal what you're feeling and when to show your emotion. So that was really good advice. And since I'm reading YA, I've just been marking when I realize like, okay, this feels like a 17-year-old reacting to someone. And I'm going to flag that and study that and make sure that when I write my 28-year-old characters, that they aren't like flying off the handle every moment something goes wrong.
Throwing the table.
Right, exactly. Like, like my main character screams a lot. She's like just yelling. She's scared. She's screaming a lot. So I'm like,
which is
maybe
like,
it's
I
that.
mean, she sees ghosts, so it's like
I would be screaming
valid of her. Yeah,
I know. I think too, there's some semblance of it's the melodrama in some of my dialogue. Like I said, I'm not the best with dialogue. I have to really work hard at dialogue. And it's also in part one, why I keep going back to it, how you kind of said as well. Like, I think I follow sometimes the hero's journey a little to a T. And that feels YA as well, where it's a lot of like the main character gets roped into something and they don't have a lot of agency until the middle of the book. Whereas Helen is an adult. There isn't a lot even holding her back from joining into the story. So I have to make her more active and have agency in the beginning and make her motivations make sense. And I think that will also help with the adult tone versus a YA tone.
I really get that. And I think we also like chatted a little bit about the YA feelingness, because I feel like at multiple points over the past couple months, it's either like you or I or like another one of our friends where we're just kind of like, oh, like this feels very YA and I don't really understand why. And I feel like in part also, like just to add, because I think Lynn's advice was so good and everything you just said was so good. I think it's also a little bit like I get really impatient that like all the introspection isn't there, that all like the real like nuance isn't there, that the intricacy isn't there yet when I'm in draft 2, which is like, I know writing is a patience game. Like I know I have to be more patient. And I know a lot of those like really rich details like do inevitably come in later drafts, but it doesn't make writing in earlier drafts any easier when you're like, why does this not feel fleshed out yet? Why does this feel like it's like missing something? And I think a lot of the time, like I'm attributing to that. I'm attributing that to feel like it's less mature than it should be. And therefore I'm like, oh, maybe this is not adult. Maybe like this is something else or something like that. But I think it's also just like a bit of a patience game, a bit of like, we need to develop the intricacy in like subsequent drafts, like iteratively, you know?
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, and that's why like I've always been hesitant even to sometimes talk about this with my friends, because I'm like, I don't want YA to feel like a derogatory word. Like, again, I 100%. Love YA and there is like nuanced YA, but you're right. We're like adult literature, fiction, lit fic, etc. Everything that goes on the adult shelf does always have just more of those I guess it's a little slower paced. It has
Yeah.
more of those introspective pause moments. And you're right, like in the first couple drafts, I'm really still writing everything out, where it is more like fast paced YA. We're like getting to the action, like everything is kind of go go go. And yeah, in later drafts, you can kind of add those nuanced layers, the pause in reaction, the pause for introspection, especially because once you are an adult, not to say I know who I was. I knew who I was. There we go. I was like, why did that sound weird coming out of my mouth? Not to say I knew who I was in like my mid 20s, but I feel like you know yourself better than when you're 15. It is maybe that's it. Maybe it's making sure not only do you as the author know your character, but your character is more self-aware of themselves, like having self-awareness of like, why maybe, okay, I have melodramatic reactions. Why do I have melodramatic actions? Like the introspection on like, oh, I really shouldn't have flown off the handle like that, like something like that, that I just feel like, you know, doesn't come up as much in YA writing. Cause like, I don't know, if I yelled at someone at 15, like I don't think I really thought about it as much as if I yelled at someone when I was 25. I'd be like, oh gosh, that was like, Mikayla, don't do that. Let's talk to your therapist now. You know what I mean? So
yeah, fair.
Yeah. So we're working on adult tone, but I think you're right. I think it's part me being hard on myself and feeling like my writing isn't like mature enough or for the tone that I want. It's partly it's draft 2, it's not finished, but it's also making sure I'm like aware of those things that might make a character act like a teenager versus act like an adult.
Yeah, I love what you said when you're like, let's just try to inspect a little bit, like why do I feel like this is melodrama? Why are they acting this way? I love that. I'm going to use that for sure.
We know what we're crashing out about. We know what we are trying to learn from our reading and our writing this week. On a positive note, what has inspired you this week, Ari?
Okay, so I feel like I have a really good answer this week, better than probably will be most weeks, because it was a very bushish. It was a very bookish week this week.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I totally forgot. You have to talk about this.
Okay. So I had a little bit of like a vacation week, and I went to Boston and then I went to New York City. So in Boston, I went to this event with Ken Liu and R.F. Kuang, and he just published a new sci-fi novel called All That We See or Seem, which is supposed to be fascinating. I haven't read it yet, but it's essentially all about like AI and the artist interface, which I think is extremely relevant for a lot of the conversations that we've been having like online across social media when it comes to especially like AI and art or AI and writing. And so it was like this tiny little theater. I think there were like, I don't know, maybe like less than 100 people there. And it was Ken and Rebecca was the interlocutor, which is just like the mediator. And she just asked such wonderful questions, and she was like so funny, like so surprisingly funny. But Ken's answers were so well thought out and so nuanced. Truly, it just felt so great to be in a room and somebody was talking about something in such nuanced ways where it's like so clear he has spent so much time. I mean, he spent 20 years. He's been writing for like over 20 years about kind of like and for those of you who don't know, Ken Liu is a sci-fi writer. He's very famous for writing The Paper Menagerie, which I think came out in like 2001 or 2002, around then.
Which that's a short story collection, right?
Yes.
Because it has my favorite short story in it. I'm going to forget the name of it, but it's what inspired one of my favorite movies of all time, which is The Arrival.
Well, I did not know that. Okay, interesting, because I learned about him not from The Paper Menagerie, but I learned about him from this TV show called Pantheon, which is from his short story collection, The Hidden Girl and Other Stories. So that's so funny. I didn't know that about Arrival, but he's been writing for decades, and he is just like very intelligent. I think he got his law degree at Harvard, like lives in Boston. But I think part of the nuance that he was able to speak with was because he had like a law degree, and he was like very much able to tease apart like all of these different discussion points. And so his conversation around AI was like, it was very fascinating because he had essentially said, I think it's actually really incredible that from a technological standpoint that we're using neural networks in order to essentially create a replica of the human brain. And from like a technological standpoint, that's like actually very incredible that we're at a place where we can say that we've done that. And obviously there's a lot of fear around AI, a lot of fear about how it's going to change, our late capitalist society, a lot of fear about how it's going to affect the job market, a lot of fear about how it's going to affect our brains and our ability to concentrate and our ability to think independently and critically. But he was able to tease apart these arguments in like really nuanced and fascinating ways. And one of the things that he said that like, obviously I can only relay so much. It was like an hour and a half long conversation. But one of the things that he said that really got me was like, as an artist and as a writer, I am saying yes to some things, but I say no to a far larger amount of things than I say yes to. And so being an artist is an iterative process of like coming up with ideas and saying no to them until you find one that feels right and that you say yes to. And I had never thought about it in that way, but like as a writer and like especially like digging deep into this story that I'm currently reading, that hit me so much because I'm like constantly thinking of these ideas, like where can we go? Like what feels right? Like what is that gut feeling that feels right for this story? And he just said it in this like one sentence. And I was like, yeah, that's it. That's true. You're essentially creating art and creating the story is a process of constantly thinking about things that I need to say no to until I find the one thing that I say yes to. And it just like really inspired me. And that whole conversation, I was just like incredible.
I love that. That is really true too. I guess like you're right. He summed it up in a way I never thought of before because I don't know if you're writing a book, I'm sure anyone listening obviously is probably writing a book. LOL. But can relate to, I feel like you're constantly thinking about your work, whether you're sitting down writing it or not, when you're in the throes of the process. And you're right, there's so much input coming in and so many ideas, but there is a lot more no's than there is yeses.
Yeah. And it's like a whole process of discernment, right? And a whole process of what sits right for me, what aligns with the vision. And I think that that's also something that like I really strive to be as a writer is like really having a very concentrated vision for what the story that I'm trying to write looks like and will be. And that's like a constant process of refining and saying no. And I just like loved that. So if anybody has like events, bookish events, like go hear authors speak because you can constantly get inspired by like hearing how other people think about things and their process and everything.
Check out your local library. I'm telling you right now, most likely your local library has author events. Check out local authors who are doing book signings. Like go meet authors, go listen to them speak. It's so important. But I'm inspired by that because I talk, I'm like, wow, that's like, I have so many thoughts going on in my brain, like fighting for attention. But because I talked about how I changed so much in my book. And I think it was a practice of discernment. Like I threw a ton of just like cool things that I like in books, like in my book just for fun, but whittling it away, like, sculpting the clay was like an act of discernment of like, okay, what's actually serving this story's purpose and how can I be more deliberate? So it's like, it's learning to trust your gut, trust yourself as an artist and say no to what you need to say no to.
100%. And also like, I think that also falls into the idea of, I don't know if you've heard this writing advice, but it's like, if you have an idea, like try to take it one step further. Like you take the idea and then you take 2 steps away from that idea. And then like, that's the idea that you should kind of use is like, and so there's an evolution to the idea process too. And there's like an evolution to that. And he was also kind of saying that, so there's this like kind of, there's this ability in this book. And he was like essentially saying is like, well, I thought of this and then I actually thought of this and then I thought of this. And then that is what wound up being in the book. And so it was this like evolution of ideas and like saying no to the first idea and then kind of getting further in as well.
That actually makes me feel so seen, because that's how I feel like this book process has gone for me. And it's an evolution. Like, I also host a podcast where I interview like published authors, and I always am like, the dreaded question of like, how did your story come to be? And I know you can't really answer it, so any little tidbits you can give us, because it is like, it's so hard to explain how a story idea comes to be. It could be literally like a small moment from like your everyday life to a song to a part in a movie to something you read, and then you have to like put it in the slow cooker and let it marinate. And then it's that discernment where you're like, okay, this works, this doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work.
Exactly. So Nick, what inspired you this week?
So I have like I've been thinking about this. What did inspire me this week? I wasn't going to share this, but I think I will. I think it feels appropriate. So if some people listening don't know me, something to know about me is I am a hobby gal. I like to do everything.
You
At
have
least once.
So many hobbies. It's incredible.
I really do.
Love it.
Partly because I have ADHD, and partly because I just feel like we have one life and I want to try everything at least once. And something I used to do years ago in like 2019, stopped during the pandemic and haven't done since, I'm trying to pick it back up again, is rock climbing. So we have a lot of like bouldering gyms around me. I don't like heights. I'm not going high. I want to stay close to the ground.
Wait, is bouldering the one no harnesses? You're kind of just
no
free?
Harnesses.
Okay.
Yep. But you're going like at most like 10 feet off the ground.
Okay.
And then you're like crawling back and then jumping onto like a soft landable pad. So it feels a lot safer. And I'm starting rock climbing again because I have two friends who are actually moving back to where I'm living from Colorado. So they're big rock climbers and I want to be able to climb with them. But I've also just, trying to find ways to move my body. That's fun. But man, this week I was humbled. So humbled. I took like an intro to bouldering, like refresh session, because I love learning and I love people telling me how to do something. It's my favorite. So I took that, and it was me and one other person. And one, I felt ancient because these two really great, lovely men were like just graduated college. And I was like, oh,
like I am a decade older than you.
You're
children.
A sweet baby bean, and I'm an old decrepit woman trying a new hobby basically again, because it feels like I'm starting from square one.
Yeah, it's hard. But also, we're still very young. I will just put that out there.
30
but
is
I
so
understand
young.
The feeling. It's like, wait, when did this happen? Yeah.
No, like how am I now 30 and I'm talking to like a 22-year-old and I'm like, whoa, like that's crazy. So they were teaching me how to climb. And of course, like my younger counterpart in this class, I mean, he was just like a little spider monkey, boop, boop, boop. And I'd get like 4 or 5 holds and then I'd be like, yeah, no, I can't get to the next one. I'm good. And at first I was like getting increasingly embarrassed.
Okay, but can I just say, rock climbing is so hard.
It's
like it
really hard.
It uses the weirdest muscles that like you would not have developed in your normal everyday life.
No, and then I'm not like really like I'm training, but not really at the gym either. Like when I go lift weights, like it's using, I don't know, it's a lot of like mind-body connection. And why I wanted to start doing it again outside of my friends is like, it's a fun, creative way to move your body. And it's a lot of problem solving. And I think it's important for writers to get out of our heads and into our bodies as much as possible, because I can live up in my head. And so I think this will be a great thing for me. But at first I was increasingly embarrassed. And then like at the end, and the boys were so sweet to me. They were so sweet to me. And, they were very, very kind. And I went into my car and I was like crying because I was like, that was embarrassing. Like I failed so hard. But I think you always have to cry. I cried everything.
Let it out.
You gotta let it out.
Yeah.
And afterwards, it is. I was reflecting on it and I was like, this is something about myself that I know. I hate failure. Like I don't like it. I don't like to fail.
Also, like in front of other people is like
Horrible.
really hard. Yeah.
really horrible.
It's really hard.
I know this about myself. And then I was like, let's reframe it. And I don't want me to like quit rock climbing because I had one bad day because I hadn't rock climbed in 5 years. Like, let's give myself a break and we're going to keep trying, because if I don't keep trying, like, then no, I won't be good at rock climbing. And I think this is why, outside of having ADHD, why I do so many hobbies is because I don't like failure. I like to be good at something when I first start. But I do try to push past that every time I try something new. And I hope that it always comes back in my writing, because I am a perfectionist and I am hard at myself. And so I think it is important to just like, it's important to fail, go out there and embarrass yourselves, take a slice of humble pie and get back on the horse again and try it again. And then I always hope that what I'm doing outside of the chair will like help me in my writing sessions when I sit down and fail at a horrible chapter, and remind myself, like, if you can fail in front of two 22-year-old guys rock climbing and go back to the gym again in front of them and fail again, you can probably write your stupid little book, Mikayla. Like, you'll be fine.
But it's so true. You're like training your brain to get comfortable with discomfort. You're training your brain to like get comfortable with like not being good at something. And like,
exactly.
That's like a certain kind of mental toughness, and that is very respectable. And I cheer you on, Mick, because that's not easy to do. I would have, like, the second I saw they were two 22-year-olds, I'd have been like, sorry, wrong class, gotta go.
Yeah, no, I instantly was like, ooh, this is gonna be rough. I was like, I didn't even stretch before this, guys. Like, you don't know how tight my hammies are. You don't know how tight my hips are. I gotta do like some mobility right before I climb, because like your girls' joints they're still there. Don't worry. They're just not as lumber as they used to be.
I would have been like cracking, like just like
I think I was. I think I was
like
cracking.
Just like, oh, that was my hip.
But I decided, to take it as an inspiration, and I'll update you guys on my rock climbing journey.
I'm so proud of you, truly.
Thank you.
And I love the lesson that you drew from it. That was so beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. Again, we gotta laugh or we cry. And sometimes we cry and then laugh after.
Or we cry and laugh at the same time, which is also kind of fun. If you've never tried it, you should.
Exactly.
Amazing. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, this is the first podcast episode, but we have 2 ideas for other segments that we kind of want to incorporate. So one of the segments is going to be discussing an article. And so if there's any like publishing related article, writing related article, even craft related article, or like maybe it's like a social media post that was like really thought provoking or something like that, like feel free, send it to either one of us. And we are super happy to discuss it and see what like juicy tidbits we come up with. So that's one segment.
Yes. I'm really excited about that. I think it'll be fun. Like we said, we wanted to do this podcast so we aren't just talking kind of to ourselves. We want to be in discussion with you and with each other. Yeah. So excited about that segment. And then another segment that we will do, hopefully, is we want to get your input. Like we said, we want to be in conversation with you as well. So we'd love if you guys could send us either DMs. We'll have an email. Probably. We'll have the podcast Instagram that you can DM. You can also email us, and the email will be in the outro here. What you are struggling with. I'm also hoping to kind of set up a little call in, and you can leave a voicemail. So stay tuned for that if you want to use your voice. So then we can really just, I don't know, it can feel more personal. We can really be in conversation. We'd love for you to share, what are you struggling with that week in your own writing, and we can kind of talk about it with you and gas you up.
Make you feel so good.
You feel so good.
Yeah. Cheer you on. I think you can also maybe like leave a voice note in our Instagram DMs.
Oh, yes.
Or maybe not our personal Instagram DMs, but like the podcast.
In the podcast DMs. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea too. Just leaving a voice note if you want to, feel like you're on air with
Mick and I are big voice note fans.
We love a voice note.
We love a voice note.
Which is why I was like, we should just start our own podcast, because I love voice notes because it feels like a mini podcast for my friends. So,
and what is a podcast if not a glorified voice note?
This is really just our voice note to you.
Yeah.
That's what we should have named ourselves. A glorified voice note.
Damn it. We haven't finished our branding. We can still change it.
A really, really, really long voice note with Ari and Mick.
Wait, I actually love it.
Yeah.
What do we do?
It's okay. I really love Craft and Crashouts though.
I think that's more on brand.
It is.
Or you know what we should do? We'll put it in our bio on Instagram and Spotify. Yes. It's just like this is just a really glorified voice note.
Yeah, this is just a giant voice note, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, look out for those segments to come. We're hoping to just take each week to check in with you guys about our writing, where we're at, what we're learning, what we're struggling with. And we can't wait to talk more about craft and crash out with you guys.
And you are also going to crash out with us. And I personally, and Mick we're both so excited to hear you all crash out so we feel less alone. Okay?
Yes, please. Please. We're all in this together. We are all doing a really hard thing, and we are all artists trying to make this art come out of us in a million different ways. So hopefully we can not only cheer each other on and be each other's support system, but be your support system too.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Bye. Okay. Thanks for listening to Craft and Crashouts, a weekly podcast by Ari and Mick. If you liked this episode, be sure to follow along wherever you are listening to stay up to date for the next one. If you want to submit your crash out for the show, DM us at craftandcrashouts on Instagram or email us at craftandcrashouts@gmail.com. Feel free to send us a voice note in either format. We'll talk to you next week with more craft talk and definitely more crash outs.